Admin report number 23317. Oh, hang on a second. I'm getting some kind of, there we go. 23317, intersection safety. What is your wish? Councillor Christensen.
Your Worship, I'll move the recommendation that admin report 023317 intersection safety be reserved for information, and that council will authorize the staff to enter in discussions with Ministry of Transportation, Infrastructure, and affected businesses regarding installation of no post barriers on 108th Street at Alaska Road North.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's moved and seconded. And so this would be basically Ministry of Transportation's decision. We will take forward our thoughts and ideas. General Manager for Integrated Services.
Thank you. There's a number of things in this report. Maybe just walk through some of it. As far as jurisdiction goes, the highway, the ditches, and the frontage roads are all part of the MOTI jurisdiction. Anything to do with the frontage roads are our responsibility as far as maintenance and repair. Then the ditches as well, we maintain in the summertime. When it comes to actual maintenance, MOTI basically looks after, if you take a snow plow and you go off the highway on the off and cut straight across and go back on, that's about the line where they maintain, and we maintain the rest, although it's in their jurisdiction. So anything to do with the frontage road or the intersection, we definitely need to get approval from MOTI, but we would be doing the install, except directly in the intersection work itself or the approaches. So that's the intersection part of it. So we were waiting, sorry, this is my screen here, for this network screening report, and it still isn't completely not draft, but section 3 I've included in the report. We did this screening in 2011, and we did it again earlier this year, so it's got a 5-year time frame on it again. One of the interesting things highlighted in number 5 here was that based on 1 million vehicles per intersection, Fort St. John collision rates were far below the average BC rates. So just got to say that our drivers here are pretty good. I mean, that's the message for starters. Because this is based on our a similar intersection with similar volumes throughout BC. So they had to create a Fort St. John number, which is less than the BC average for this calculation. When you talk about critical collision rate index, or CCRI, if there's a value that's 1 or higher, there's a potential concern. So doing things by the number, there's very few intersections that need anything looked at. Number 1 in-city intersection is 100th and 100th. The next one is 93rd Avenue and 96th Street. And a couple years ago, we added turn arrows there. So there's not much else we can do with that one at this point, unless we completely modify it and make things like, if you're in the outside lane, you must turn right. But we've made the modifications. So hopefully in the next 5-year cycle, that number will actually be less than 1. The only other one that's above 1 in city is actually 110th Avenue, 98th Street. In 5 years, there was 13 accidents. So 1 every 5 months or so. And to maybe upgrade that, you can do a couple things. Larger stop signs with the red stripe on the signpost, flashy red lights on top of it, or potentially converting it to a 4-way stop. It's barely over 1, so if you go by the numbers, not much really needs to happen there to get it upgraded. And the number 1, if you looked at highway, if we looked at 100th Avenue and the highway. That actually would be the worst intersection in the city if you were to include the highway intersections. The highway, the 108th Street or the McDonald's kind of intersection, it's actually ranked at number 11. Definitely not the worst intersection in the city. It is a little awkward though, so it's perceived that way. And certainly the CCRI is well below 1. That's the highway itself. If you look at part of the issue, of course, is there's the highway intersection, the north frontage intersection, and there's also the south frontage intersection. The south frontage didn't even come on the top 30 intersections list, and that's partly because the traffic only recently has increased due to the development on the south side. So if you look at the intersection on the north side, the north frontage road, it's the 12th in the city, and 21 accidents over 5 years. So it is close to a 1, so there could be some improvements done there. So when you look at it, the next page is the size of the circles shows the numbers of the collisions per intersection. This one being the largest, 100th close. One we didn't actually include in the review was 100th Street and the highway, but it would be up there as well if we had included it. And then intersections that weren't included. So we've done a number of, or looked at it, and these lines and where they cross are potential conflict points. So that's a lot of potential conflicts, a lot of places to look out when you have traffic going straight across or off the highway. So we included a few options. One was putting the barriers down, definitely reduces the conflicts. The biggest problem with doing this is now if you're coming off the highway to go this way, you can't do it, vice versa to go down the frontage road. It does allow you to come from the frontage road and go south on the highway, which is a good option. The worst thing, depending on how far you take this barrier, is come off the highway and you can't make this turn, you might be tempted to do that. Or you might be tempted to come from this direction and cut across there and go back into town. Not good options. The worst part about this whole area is there's no good grid system to limit maneuvers without now causing someone to turn around in a business somewhere. Whether it's just right here where you might want to sneak around the backside and come around, or down in, say, Home Hardware or Alpine Glass, or I would really worry about this business right here. Either limiting their access from people coming and going, or having people cutting through and using it. So that's a very big issue with whatever we do here. Another option would be just by doing islands. In this option, there's very few conflicts, but what I fear would happen here was people would come and they would do things they're not supposed to around the corner of this island, and they might even come this way and then decide they're going to cut straight across anyways. Next option had a little bit of a hybrid to mitigate any straight across. So this does allow you to do a few things. So there's a number of options here. Certainly you could even do things like putting in islands here with over-tracking lanes just to tighten up this whole space so it's not so long. The easiest, cheapest, quickest thing that could be done here is option 1, but it definitely has some questions about how far we go with the barriers and impacts on surrounding businesses. So that's with the intersections. The other thing was the signage. I've included the manual that we use, which is developed with ICBC from the Transportation Association of Canada's guidebook and the manual for universal traffic. I forget what it all stands for, but it's in the report. That's in there, and also there's a letter regarding intersection. There are design considerations that were included on one of our last capital projects to help mitigate speeding and issues. And the other thing we've done is we've purchased a radar counter, which can be used winter or summer because the other tubes and things that we were using in the past did not function in the wintertime, at least not very well because of ice and snow and grader blades. So that was out for a week already, and so far the data that came, or almost a week, showed very low volumes of traffic and low speeds. So that's currently out. I don't know if there's any questions or comments that council has. The other direction that you might have.
No, I think we do need to have this meeting with the Ministry of Transportation. I think, I'm trying to remember how far out we go from 70 to 50 coming in on the Alaska Highway from Charlie Lake.
Where our sign is.
No, that doesn't go down to 70. No.
From 90
Or
to
it
70?
doesn't go down to, it doesn't go down to
90
50.
to 70.
When it goes from 90
Goes
down to 70.
70 at our
Okay.
sign.
So I don't know what the accidents are, but I'm not surprised that that intersection at 100th Avenue and the highway is because they're scooting through town at a pretty high rate of speed. And you're, of course, that's the first intersection where they hit where you're really at 50 kilometers an hour.
70.
Well, you're
Oh,
50,
coming in.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're 50.
Coming off.
If you're coming from Rona, for example, out, you're at 50 kilometers an hour. And so if you are, if you're thinking that the people coming through are at 50, then you're going to be in trouble. So I like this idea. So this was information gathered as of August of 2017? Is that what the report says 2017 in the margin?
Network screening report is the collisions over the last 5 years. So it's a 5-year time frame.
Right. And it was collected as of 2017, August?
It was initiated back in February of this year.
Oh, okay.
We received the first draft in about August, but since then we've been going through it a few times.
I noticed that just 98th Street at 110th and 112th were high. The construction this summer had a lot of people there, and so that just made it a little worse. So, okay. So the recommendation is as presented. Councillor Christensen. Sorry.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Victor, I forget what his title is there. You don't show any pictures on the other side of the highway, and I know since there has been some businesses spring up on the, I call it the west side, it's probably the south side of the highway there. They come down that road after picking up their coffee or a hot dog, whatever, and they want to turn left and continue down the highway. I've seen vehicles coming off of the highway at that corner, and it's like, look out.
Correct.
So that it's also, I think when we have our discussion, that area also needs to be included in the discussion. And I will have to say that whenever somebody in town talks to me about the intersections, that's the intersection that comes up, and they will totally avoid it. So maybe the reason we're not having accidents is because they're going other intersections. So it's
Quite possible.
I think it's because it's wide open and they know it's an issue, and so they're a little more attentive going into that. Yeah. So at any rate, we do have the resolution there, and so is there anything further? In favor? Opposed? Carried.